to our latest Bright Talk. Today we will talk about how the digital transformation affects digital asset management. Or more precisely, we will talk about what has changed in the space of digital asset management in recent years alongside the digital transformation. What are the main use cases and how is it affecting our clients? And with me today is Kees Henniphof from Bynder. He's VP of Demand Gen and of course an expert in digital asset management. Maybe you can shortly introduce yourself, Kees.
Yes, of course. Kees Henniphof. I run demand generation for Bynder. I started at Bynder in October of last year, so I'm not completely new, but a bit new. So learning a lot about digital asset management and our position in that space. Before Bynder, I spent about 6 years at ServiceNow, American-based IT company focused on service management and request fulfill workflows. So that's where I spent the last part of my career. And that's me. So demand generation for Bynder means running all activities necessary to discover leads, find projects, create demand, get the pipelines going for Bynder, and work with the sales team to sign new customers.
Great, let's jump straight into it. Let's start with some short background information. What problems does digital asset management solve? Do you see any main use cases you can share with us?
Yeah, so Bynder is a best-of-breed digital asset management player. And we've been in the market since 2013. So, and in that time, we grew to about 400 employees, serving about 1,500 customers. And what our customers love about Bynder and why they need digital asset management is because we see the world change very fast for our customers. And they're under a lot of pressure. So usually they are in the marketing departments. They either run brand management teams, or they run marketing campaign teams, or they're in the process of finding new digital revenue streams. And what is the common challenge that these people have is that through the years, more and more digital systems are being introduced to help them manage the workload. And all of these systems that they use, and it can be to create assets or to manage assets or to distribute assets to their end users. All these systems, they have their own requirements when it comes to assets, right? And the more time they spend to keep the systems going, sometimes they call it, we need to feed the beast. The more time they spend doing that, the less productive they will be. So that will influence their output. It could influence whether they're able to keep a consistent brand image in the market. It could influence the overall speed of the marketing department and also the agility of the marketing department. So how much time does it take to respond to things that happen in the market? And therefore, in the end, it impacts their competitive position in the market. If competitors are able to respond faster, have a short time to market, then at the end of the day, that will hurt your bottom line. And that's why customers come to Bynder. And that's why I guess Bynder is growing at a very decent pace. So the way we see customers adopt a DAM is actually quite diverse. So I talked about different challenges that our customers struggle with. And the challenge they deal with actually also directs how they adopt the DAM. And we typically see 3 ways of adoption. The first one is for brand management. Internally, we like to compare that to a Louis Vuitton store. So a lot of space, very few assets. And that's because those assets are extremely valuable, right? You talk about, for a company, the logo, the taglines, the guidelines around how the logo can be applied in different channels and environments, all kinds of templates. So this is not about the volume of assets. It's about a small amount of assets that are extremely strategic, and mistakes with these assets are often very, very expensive, right? When a logo is misused, then that is very visible, and you get into trouble. Second adoption case is when you look at marketing campaigns. A very common use case is a company develops a new campaign, is a global company. They need to bring that campaign to market in many markets. Then quite usually there's local teams involved, but also agencies, freelancers, anyone who has to pick up these assets and produce them and bring them to market. And that's how they use the DAM. So the DAM is, of course, in the cloud. The new campaign and all of its assets are being put in the digital asset management system. A notification is sent to all the producers in all of the markets with a note saying something like, hey, the new campaign for this or that value proposition is now available. Please pick it up and make sure it's executed in whatever time frame it needs to go to market. So that's the second use case. The third use case is the product catalog DAM. So this is a high volume use case where companies use the digital asset management system to manage all of the visual information around products. It could be because they have trading systems that they need to serve so that all kinds of trade partners have access to product information. It could be there's a live connection to an e-commerce system so that the website and the e-commerce module on the website displays the latest visuals on the products. Could also be there is a service running to print so that you can just feed brochures or any kind of print collaterals with visuals from the digital asset management system. But the common denominator is high volume. Again, high risk of failure because in e-commerce these are all highly automated content operations. So you're working with product codes, with barcodes, and all kinds of system-to-system type workflows and service flows that make sure that the website displays the right imagery. And you can imagine for online e-commerce operations, that's extremely important that we don't make mistakes in visualizing the product. A fourth use case that we started identifying simply because our customers use it in that direction is sales enablement. So oftentimes in business-to-business environments or where you have a company with a large dealership network, you want to enable whoever is selling the product with the right collaterals. Could be brochures, data sheets, but also visuals that can then be picked up and used in selling the product. So that's the fourth use case that we see is around sales enablement.
Let's take a step back. Looking at the broader topic of the digital transformation, how does digital asset management fit in there?
Yeah, so there's many definitions of digital transformation, and if you just do a simple query on the internet, you'll easily find tens of millions of different ways of looking at the topic. The way we think about it is digital transformation is using technology to change how work is done, and the end result is always about, in our world, making it easier to get to a certain result, right? And that's why, like I said in my introduction, that's why our customers love Bynder. It's easy to implement, it's easy to use, it's user-friendly. Our customers like to use it, and therefore adoption rates are really high. If you use Bynder to set up a brand portal, then with some other solutions, adoption can be an issue. With a system as easy as Bynder, we see really nice adoption rates. But then where it connects to digital transformation is what it is, what kind of work are we making easier by implementing Bynder. And what we see is it goes, again, in a number of directions. First of all, it's about how easy or difficult is it to be consistent as a brand. right? We live in an omni-channel world, multi-channel, omni-channel. A lot of the feedback that we get from our customers is sometimes it can feel like a bit of a race where new channels pop up every day. The channels that our prospects and customers select to interact with the brand, that's really up to them, right? So it's not, we don't direct how the market is going to connect with the company, and as a result, in marketing teams, we put up all the different channels, and then we work hard to keep all the channels up to date and also consistent in terms of quality, right? Where it's just impossible to have a great website but be unavailable on Instagram, or have an e-commerce website but not pick up when someone starts chatting, right? So all these different channels are kind of happening at the same time, and companies struggle to maintain brand consistency across the channels. So that's one thing where they go through digital transformation. The transformation is that the requirement becomes to be omnichannel, and then the solution needs to help the customers to deal with that new situation. And that's why they have to adopt and transform. Second, quite often is, I said before, how much time does it take to respond to changes in the marketplace? You talk about time to market, or you talk about productivity, right? So if you have an in-house brand team or a creative team, and you add channels, you in fact add the workload on these teams. So how difficult is it for them to create more assets in different file formats? There's a huge requirement currently to do more video marketing. It produces extremely high volume video assets. Then marketers want to atomize video assets to do small teasers, right? But then when you look for that video, you find the 3-minute version, and is it difficult to also find 10-second teasers? The digital asset management system makes that very easy and straightforward.
We're right in it, right?
Let's make this very hands-on, right? So we conclude this webinar. You have the recording. You put the recording on a website. You put the promotional tweet on Twitter. You do a LinkedIn update, maybe something on Instagram. That is mostly manual. But then if you are Puma and you put 20 collections out in a year, and every collection is a pure branding exercise, that is, the amount of video work that these consumer brands do is just stunning, right? And it results in tens of thousands of assets a year that these customers manage in Bynder. So if it's difficult to manage that thing, if you struggle with SharePoints and OneDrive and Dropbox and Box and all these cloud folder structures that you ask people to keep up to date, everyone who's worked in a bit bigger organization that's a bit more international. So you can imagine consumer brands like Puma, Spotify, IKEA. You're literally talking about tens of thousands of assets across all these different file types, distributed teams working on it with freelancers and agencies, etc. You can imagine there is a tremendous amount of time invested just in digital asset management. But in many companies that are not yet at that tremendous size, it's kind of a hidden problem or a hidden piece of work where people sometimes almost accept it as a fact of life that you're looking for stuff and you're calling a colleague and you know that John in creative always has the answer to your question. And then they reach the point where it's really slowing them down, and it stops them from being able to execute the plans that they need to execute in order to compete. The example I always have on this one is IKEA. Of course, no one will ever argue that IKEA was struggling with anything, but they were extremely aggressive, and they wanted to bring 4 collections to market per year instead of 2. Now, if you are IKEA, then the thing they do better than anyone else is designing the products, making sure that, all these things everyone knows about IKEA, that it will be in great, the logistical process, the design process, the packaging process, everything will be spotless, right? But the logistical process of putting out 4 of these brilliant catalogs with corresponding websites, with corresponding sales enablement, with in-store promotions, that is like ×2 everything also on the marketing and campaign side. So IKEA uses Bynder to just manage that entire process. And no one will ever argue that it's because of Bynder that they can do it, but they recognize the strategic value of the asset management in order to be able to grow the operation like that. It's when you realize that you need to put some resource in place to help you keep that thing under control, because otherwise it could easily backfire, right? And that's what these brands, of course, don't want. No one wants this. So that's why we kind of get to the realization that if digital transformation, multi-channel marketing, cross-channel brand is of strategic importance, you will see these brands start invest in a system like Bynder Dan. So I touched on productivity, efficiency, like how. That's the other thing that we see often is companies spend an awful lot of time creating terrific brands, creating terrific brand assets, but then understanding which of those assets are used and making sure that it's easy to find assets for global organizations, to make sure that something is created once and then used many times, can be quite as, or just as challenging as coming up with the idea in the first place, right? So reuse of assets and getting the most value out of the assets that are being created is, again, something that is maybe less sexy than creating the campaign itself. But in terms of value for money and ROI of your investment in brand content, super important. So we see our customers create KPIs around use and reuse of assets that help them optimize their content operations and understand what to do more and what to maybe do a bit less. The last one, which is kind of the result of everything, is twofold. I started with brand consistency, but also time to market, right? So you do all these things right, but then you do them at speed and at scale, and you keep doing it.
Kees, you've been in this industry for quite a while. What has changed in recent years, and do you see any general trends?
That's a good point. I've been in this industry for quite a bit. I'm getting a bit older. But the interesting thing is, when I started in business-to-business marketing and demand generation, everyone was focused on personas. Everyone was focused on marketing automation and dynamic content, so that people would start feeling like, even though everyone understands that business-to-business marketing and even more so business-to-consumer marketing is a big number game. So personalization is also always something that is supported by machines, if you will. That has been the promise of modern demand generation, is understand who you're talking with and then change your messaging, change your content, be flexible and dynamic, and then use scoring systems, nurturing systems to make sure that you keep that conversation going, so that you can pinpoint the people on the radar screen that are ready to have a live human conversation, right? And I mentioned the word human. Over the last couple of years, this moves towards machine learning, chatbots, changing from reading to talking and video type interaction with your prospects. So you see a shift in demand generation and in marketing, and also in brand, where brands become almost like human beings. We talk about the character of a brand. We want brands to take a position also in society. A recent example is how Nike behaved around American football players taking a knee, right? They were very aggressive. And they made a stand, and you see a tremendous positive response in the market, and many examples. I was looking at a Gillette video of a transgender guy shaving for the first time. These are big movements for a brand like Gillette. And so you see marketeers and brand marketers thinking about the role of the brand, the personality of the company, and at the same time trying to be that person also in interaction. So we apply everything we learned in the first 10 years of the century, if you will, around personas and buyers and who are you talking to and how responsive and personalized can you be. And those technologies become smarter and smarter. And I think that's just a continuing thing where brands will be humanizing, interactions will be more personalized, and systems will be used to kind of keep that process going. And the way Bynder is trying to be part of that movement is by making it very easy to understand the content and the assets that can support that process, so that we can really quickly pinpoint who are you, what are you looking for, how can we help you, and what is the most relevant asset in any shape or form that can bring that conversation along and bring that asset in the channel at the time when you're ready for it. So that it doesn't feel like, oh, Mr. Marketing wants me to stop doing what I'm doing and read his brochure. No, I asked the question, I got a really great answer, and I'm ready to move forward.
So where exactly does digital asset management fit into this in terms of the marketing technology stack?
So we spend a lot of time thinking about, I think what Gartner dubbed some time ago the API economy. So if you want to be a player in the cloud space, you need to be an open technology, and you need to be able to integrate with your adjacent partners, if you will, on the technology side. So if you look at the marketing stack or the various systems that we use when we interact with suspects, prospects, and customers, you can integrate Bynder with a social media management platform to make it very easy for your web care team to pick up the right visuals from the DAM that are already in the right dimensions for Twitter, different dimensions for LinkedIn, tied to campaign messages or to support conversations or whatever, however you configure that integration. When you look at websites, CMS, a nice example is KLM, the Dutch airline. They connect Bynder to their CMS as well as to their social care management system, so that all the visuals that are used either in social media or on the website are directly pulled from Bynder, which means the marketing team, the creative team, is responsible for putting the assets in the DAM, and the web care team and the web team are responsible for creating excellent experiences in those channels. Both teams do what they do best, and the chance of human errors is virtually zero. If you look at marketing automation, we integrate Bynder with Pardot so that whenever we send an email, the email template will pull the header visual and promotional banners directly from Bynder. Copy blocks will be served up and populate the email template, and from there on, the email marketing team will pick it up, finalize the message, deploy it. Salesforce.com, the way we serve assets to the sales team in support of the sales process, Salesforce connected to Bynder. So this is a big API game. We play it well, and as a result, assets flow from the company to suspects, prospects, customers across the customer lifecycle. And that's what Bynder needs to do. That's what DAM can do in digital transformation. And I guess wherever you are in the stack, that's how you look at your role in the overall picture of things.
So can you give us some real-life examples?
Of course. So I already mentioned KLM and how they connected the DAM to social and to the web CMS. Another nice example, I think, is Spotify. I mentioned the different use cases for them that we see in how our customers adopt the system. Spotify actually has two. They have one DAM for their brand assets and their marketing campaign assets, and they have a separate DAM for all of the product assets, which are the small visuals they use in Spotify for the albums and the artists and all the artwork that goes on in the platform. But also very interesting use cases or customer cases, I think, are the examples where companies have multi-brand architectures. Good examples are KLM, already mentioned. KLM merged with Air France, right? So now we have this big brand architecture between a corporate brand, the two air carriers, product brands for each of them, and that whole infrastructure, that whole brand architecture is managed in Bynder, so that chances are very, very slim that someone will pick up the wrong logo or the wrong tagline for their particular communication scenario that they're working in. Another good one is Coolblue, one of the biggest Dutch e-commerce personal electronics brands, so big web shop, very well known in the Netherlands. They have their e-commerce system, but then they have the Bynder DAM for all of their brand visuals, all of their internal communication programs, so that whenever these teams build a new campaign, the assets are in Bynder, and whoever is executing them just goes in, picks them up, and runs with it. So, yeah, it really depends on, and this is also how we talk about it inside Bynder is. It always starts with the struggle and the phase in digital transformation that our prospect is in, and then they bring a problem to Bynder, and we configure a DAM that is best positioned to help address that challenge. But there isn't one solution in digital transformation. One solution, I think, at least for these big accounts, it's not one solution. It's a conversation. And it's a work in progress. It's never done, and we're very grateful to be working for very big global brands who are on this journey and who keep looking for new ways to differentiate.
So unfortunately, we are already reaching the end of this Right Talk. Kees, would you have some final words for us?
Pleasure is all mine. And I just wanted to mention, if anyone is watching, who wants to learn more, of course, you can always engage with us across all channels, but preferably start on Bynder.com, and then you'll see where to go from there. If you want to meet us and be part of one of the biggest brand conferences in Europe, then check out our On Brand 2019 conference, which will be held in Amsterdam in October. Again, look for On Brand or go to Bynder.com and you'll find all you need. And we're looking forward to host you there.
Great. Thank you again for joining us today, Kees.